The Babe Simulator.
That is Melody Rules, commonly referred to as the worst sitcom ever made. But is it really that bad? Back in 1993, Geoff Houtman and Mihera Paterson created the American-style sitcom that survived 40 episodes, 2 whole seasons, and was made in a little place called New Zealand. This news blew me away because as a Kiwi myself, knowing that someone from New Zealand have created and been credited for making the worst sitcom ever made, I became intrigued. I wondered, how bad really was this? And is it really the worst sitcom ever made?
I remember sitting down and watching the pilot and going, oh my God, what the hell is that?
They dyed her hair. They tried to physically remake her.
I was like, damn, like, that's so bad. And I turned around to my friends and I was like, so, what'd you think? And one of my friends was like, bro, I don't know how to say it. It just was maybe the worst thing I've ever seen in my life.
Oh my God, Melody bloody rules.
For me to really understand if this sitcom was as horrible as everyone said it is, I had to do the unthinkable, the psychotic, the crazy. I watched an episode. And just to make sure that season 2 did not get any better, I decided to watch one episode from season 2 as well. So there I go, sitting my fat ass down to watch one episode from every season of what I've been told is the worst sitcom ever made. Okay, so the first episode I'm going to watch of the show is the literal first episode of the show. It's called Going, Goner, and I have no clue like what to expect at all. I don't know what the hell's gonna happen. This could be amazing, this could be horrible like everyone has said. But we just gotta watch and find out.
But if you were caught in a spider's web perhaps.
Oh, love you too.
No, love you.
No, love you.
There's a laugh track. Wow! I knew it was an American style sitcom, but I didn't expect the laugh track. I already add enough laughing crowd sound effects in my own videos. I don't want to hear them in this too.
Tell you what, as a treat, since it's my last supper, I'll cook it.
Great! Then we can go upstairs and practice our abseiling. Monster!
Okay, to make this a bit more interesting, I'm gonna add a counter at how many times I laugh directly from the show, which will probably stay at 0 for the whole video, but we'll see. If this show is actually funny, this video is gonna suck.
But seriously, what can I do for you, Aurora?
Aurora Williams! Aurora, caution, filling may be hot, Williams!
We're 4 minutes in, and this is so bad. I don't know what else to say. Like, the jokes are just awful. It's really not funny at all. What am I don't know, how am I supposed to give commentary to this? It's just bad.
Melody Robbins, this is your life.
Oh God. That is horrible. Oh my God, I just realized how low down in my chair I am. I don't know how else I'm supposed to, like, I'm speechless, honestly. That was just so bad. It was so bad. It was just horrible. I don't know how else I can explain it. The jokes weren't funny. The story was really bad and stupid. I didn't understand 99% of it. And how are there 2 whole seasons of this? Gravity Falls went on for 2 whole seasons and had about 40 episodes. The exact same as this. But one of them is actually good. I can't judge a whole show though based on just one episode. So let's go to season 2 and check out one final episode. The show is actually genuinely making me sad. Like, it's a comedy. Why am I feeling depressed?
Birthday on a sonsy face, are ye great chief for the pudding race?
What is going on?
Neville, you're going to have to show us this Highland fling. You must have improved dramatically.
It's the final rock and roll spin that gets them every time.
But Neville, there aren't any spins in the Highland fling.
Yeah. No.
Okay, fine. Take the laugh counter up to 1. Dude, It did not get better, okay? It got worse. Both of those episodes were some of the most, like, horrid, just TV I've ever watched. Ever. Oh, okay. I think I need a breather after that. Yeah. Yeah, maybe people were right. Okay, so now that we've taken a look at Melody Rules, is it really the worst sitcom ever made? Well, that's a really hard question to answer, but like, out of all the sitcoms I've seen, oh, 100%, yes. Yeah, from my first impression alone, you can see that I did not really have a good time watching it. Like, there's a moment where I'm just staring blankly into the screen for like 10 minutes. The jokes are horrible and not even remotely funny. The characters are bland and uninteresting, and worst of all, there's a laugh track. No, don't you start! So yes, the show has been considered the worst sitcom of all time, and that has had a hugely negative effect on the actors, writers, producers, and creators of the show. But how did this show even come to be in the first place? Well, let's go back to 1993, when the relatively new channel TV3 decided that they wanted to make a sitcom. This would be the first for New Zealand, because New Zealand had never before this tried making a situational comedy. This would be the first attempt. And also the last. After putting some promotion out there, hundreds of people gathered and attended to be a part of New Zealand's first ever sitcom. It went from 120 people down to just 20, with whoever was in charge deciding to split them into teams of 2 and make them come up with the ideas for the show they came here to be on. If this was me, I would have bottled it out of there as fast as my meaty legs could, because what? That's already a red flag, dude, but like, a lot more red flags were bound to come. Like, somehow, the last of the writers getting Giardia. Yes, I am not kidding, Giardia. After TV3 chose possibly the worst script out of all of the teams of 2, the worst sitcom ever made was finally getting started. Fast forwarding through the network's horrible casting to character choices, generic concepts, the horrible final idea for the show just being given to these actors who had never acted, a director who's never directed, and creators who didn't even create the show, a disaster was born. Now let's actually break down the show. First off, character 1, and who I see as the main character, Melody Robbins. She's the older sibling of 3, looking after her younger sister as well as her younger brother, while her mother is going off to find her husband, who's trying to find the milk. She's the straight man, she's the responsible one, and the idea for this character being made up by Matt Donaldson and Kate Smythe, who were the actual original creators of Melody Rules, or what they called Flat Out. With Kate wanting Melody's character to be how her life was when she grew up, always looking after herself. Character 2, Zoe. She's the younger sister to Melody, being extremely sarcastic, loud, and having some of the coolest hair I've ever seen. Like, damn! Character 3, his name is Geoff. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm just not gonna pass up on the opportunity to make a My Name is Geoff joke. He's one of these two guys, and you can pick your side because I literally have no idea which one is Geoff. And Geoff's always with his buddy Crayfish. Geoff and Crayfish. Yeah, I think I can see why the show is considered the worst sitcom of all time. These guys are goofy, best bros, and masters at being annoying. Monster! Character 5, Fiona. She's the crazy blonde party girl, which definitely ticks all the boxes for someone that I can relate to. She's Melody's BFF and is the complete opposite of Melody, but she actually wasn't supposed to be. I'll get into that later because finally we've got Neville. He's the next door neighbor that always pops around to get some sugar and totally doesn't give me the creeps. These were the 5 main characters, and for the majority of the show, the only 5 characters that you would ever see. That's fine, that's not a deal breaker for me, but oh my god, it makes the show so boring. The reason it makes the show so boring is because the characters are like heartless. There's not much to them. What I explained about them before is literally everything about what they do in the show. They're stale, boring, and not interesting at all. But what's worse than the generic, flavorless, boring characters is the... It's the set. I had to prepare to say that because, dude, the set is crazy. Now, I have to say this just so you know, and just so we can get it out of the way. They never leave the house! Actually, they stay in 2 rooms, the lounge and the kitchen, but they're both connected, so it's basically 1 room. With actors and the director of the show explaining that the set was so small and so flimsy. The walls were made of foam and polystyrene, and they had to remove the walls just to get a damn long shot. A long shot! With TV3 being such a new channel, they didn't have nor want to give Melody Rules any budget. So what they did instead was give Melody Rules the basement of their studio. So that's where they filmed the whole show. The room was described as a broom closet, with the 2 rooms being so small and actors having to literally crouch at the top of the stairs to pretend that they're walking up into another room. That 1 room and those 5 generic characters were the biggest part of the death of the show. Or were they? Let's take, for example, another sitcom with 5 characters who, for example, can stay in 1 room for a whole episode and still make some of the best comedy ever made. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia is one of those shows that you can't believe did and does still exist. It's absolutely hilarious, heartbreaking, emotionally charged, dark, and is still going today. But let's compare a Melody Rules episode with all 5 main characters in a room for 20 minutes to a Sunny episode with the exact same format. In season 7, episode 7 of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, Charlie McDennis, The Game of Games, we see the characters never leave the bar, not once. Now, if you've never seen this show or this particular episode before, then you're probably thinking, ugh, that sounds so boring. I can see inside your brain. Oh, but anyway, this episode is the first to have just the 5 main characters in the show, and it is one of the highest rated in the show's entire history. Then there's Melody Rules, with an episode having just the 5 main characters in 1 room for the show's entire episode, and it's one of the worst rated episodes in all of history. In the history of the But how? It all comes down to the characters, which are the life of the show, and what I will get into later is how TV3's weird networking decisions maybe ruined Melody Rules. The characters of Sunny have depth to them, with so many seasons having to go into to dig into their personality traits, ins and outs, and turning them from TV characters into real human beings. At least I really hope not for Dennis. So was it just Melody Rules having 2 seasons, making it so the characters couldn't have even had enough depth or, you know, time to make it so the characters could be actual living people? Yeah, definitely not. I've already used it as an example in this video, and in every other video it's staring directly back at me, but Gravity Falls. But Gravity Falls, my favorite cartoon of all time, only had 2 seasons. The show only had 40 episodes, exactly like Melody Rules, but it is considered one of the best cartoons of all time. The characters are luscious, real, alive people, and they were established, taken on a journey, and no spoilers here, brought to their final destination in 40 episodes of television. And that might be why Melody Rules was so... There was no continuous story or like change or growth to any of these characters, and with them only being in 1 spot for the whole show, you can see why Melody Rules has been considered as horrible. Then in 1994, the show eventually aired, and like not just at a random time in the middle of the night when only bloodshot-eyed, cracked out, stoned teenagers were watching, but at a prime time spot. Let's just say people were not the biggest fans of Melody Rules. Negative review after negative review, the show had an immediate impact on everyone that was involved, and especially the actors who had to go through some horrible stuff.
I got jumped by a group of other kids at the gas station, and even the dude's mother was like trying to get a kick in. You know, there's that fucking dick from TV, and then like, get him! Like, suddenly running, he's got his mum who looked like she is a pretty rough lady, and like we jumped in this taxi begging the taxi driver to like drive, and then suddenly like they're all kicking the car. I mean, it was just like some of the shit I had to deal with.
Okay, the mum joining in is pretty funny, but that's horrible. Members of the main cast getting jumped, flying out of the country, and becoming suicidal. It's safe to say that Melody Rules was a disaster. The show was not just considered a failure in New Zealand, it's considered as like, if not, the worst situational comic failure in the world. So now all of New Zealand and the entire globe knows about this ginormous failure that was Melody Rules. What happened to the actors, writers, producers, creators, and everyone involved in the show? Well, in excruciating detail, you're about to find out. So now we're 25 years into the future, March 2019. The co-creator of Melody Rules, Geoff Houtman, decides to finally break his silence and share his story with the world. His brand new podcast, The Worst Sitcom Ever Made, debuts its 8 episodes, and wow, is it intense.
It was so embarrassing and such a disaster and such a waste of money, and I cannot believe that no one's heads rolled.
Why did they think this was a good idea? And the truth of that is, the good idea was way behind the hill somewhere. And it was beaten with a stick until it became the bloodied corpse that you see before you now.
This podcast was exactly what the world needed, an in-depth look into history as to how and why Melody Rules went so wrong. This wallop of a failure has been stuck on Geoff's back for 25 years, never being fully able to pull off that band-aid because there was too much gross shit underneath. Let me just say, unlike the show, the podcast is amazing. It's so interesting to hear about human failure, and with the show being such a great insight as to everything that happened to make a show, well, as bad as it was. Geoff talks with almost everyone that was on the original show, with him going on to topics and into more topics and into some pretty dark topics, all to answer the question, was Melody Rules a failure? After Melody Rules had gone down in history as the worst sitcom ever made, there were so many unanswered questions about how was it like on set? Why was the network so controlling and weird? And how did everyone get Giardia? These were questions that desperately needed answering, and in only 8 20-minute episodes, which was a lot less than the show, Geoff established everyone, took you on a journey, and dropped you off at your final destination. The podcast deserves so much more credit and is seriously amazing, so I highly recommend you check it out after this video, because listening to all 8 episodes of this podcast really made me understand and as well as change my perspective on failure altogether, which I'll get into later. But first, let's answer this question. Why was Melody Rules so unfunny? And yes, that's totally a word, so don't even start.
Dunn here did a bomb in the school swimming heats and absolutely soaked everyone.
There's a wasp in my toes.
Well, this was something that began brewing as soon as the concept for Melody Rules was first chosen by the network. In the podcast, Geoff talks to some of TV3's higher-ups at the time, and they definitely had a say in the extremely weird choices of the show.
The network said things like, no, you can't do that.
Fighting a constant battle with the network. I hadn't met many network people before.
Someone from the network. The network executives.
Notes from network.
Network bullshit.
The network.
Network. The network. The network. The network.
The network.
Network. The network.
The network.
The network!
So, from what my sources have all gathered, the show is ass. They had no idea what they were doing when it came down to making a sitcom, especially in New Zealand. But that's no excuse, because the choices they made were so extremely horrible. For example, the main character of the show, the sweet and nice Melody, was played by Belinda. Todd was something of a rebel, a fun and sexy, boundary-pushing TV presenter, and for some reason, TV3 wanted her to be the role of Melody Robbins. Then there's Susan Brady, who applied for the role of Melody Robbins because she thought she would be a perfect fit, and she was, but the network decided to play her and put her in the position of Fiona. You know, the character that I described as, she's the crazy blonde party girl, which definitely ticks all the boxes for someone that I can relate to. So TV3, can you please explain to me, why was she not Melody? This is something that confused Geoff for 25 years and was something that no one on the show knew why TV3 would even ever make that choice. The network was so set on Melody Rules being targeted towards young women. They wanted the show just to appeal to their target audience, when in reality they should have scrapped that and let the creators, cast, crew, directors of the show just do whatever they wanted to do, and maybe Melody Rules would actually be funny. Okay, that's a bit of a stretch, but anyway. Something that also may have confused you is how a show this horrible would have got 40 full-length episodes, and that's why
we were in the dark for quite some time. We were filming for ages and we hadn't been reviewed because we hadn't been on air.
And then it got renewed before it had even gone to air.
No.
How did that happen?
Yeah. They renewed it for a second season before the first one had even come out. Who on God's green earth does that? This was a huge shock to everyone working on the show because, let me remind you, no one had even seen an episode yet. They hadn't even seen a single episode of this show yet, so there was nothing to go off of to improve on or to make changes towards the show. The network took the worst possible idea for the show, gave them horrible writing conditions, a basement to film in, and Giardia. They literally promoted it as the next Seinfeld. Like, I'm not even joking, you can look that up. A hilarious American-style comedy made in New Zealand, turning it into a show that they hadn't even bothered watching an episode before it aired, and renewing a whole nother season. Does this not sound crazy to you? If anything, the writers, directors, creators, everyone involved in the show actually put in as much effort and work as they possibly could, and the network ruined everything for them. If any of you have watched my last video, you'll see the resemblance. So yeah, dude, the greatness of the podcast shows how talented the people actually working on the show were, but the conditions that they were in and everything else that they had to go through made the worst sitcom ever made. One quote that I really loved from this podcast was that of,
I just thought it was a really tired, ordinary concept, and it had nothing really special or uniquely Kiwi about it. And so it was a little generic, and I think generic is the death of humour.
The characters were dull and boring, the location that they were in was stale and just not even interesting to look at, and did I mention they never left it? Because they never left it! And that quote is so right, because if the show presents something to you that is uninteresting and generic AF, bro chacho, then the show's never gonna be interesting. It's never gonna be funny. As the show goes on, Geoff has like a brain spark, or a fire lights in his head, and he realizes that everyone on the show was grateful for the experience that they had. They understood that yes, they did not make the great New Zealand sitcom that they were hoping to, but they did try their best and learnt a lot about what not to do when creating a sitcom. Their perspectives were completely different from Geoff's. They weren't carrying this monkey over their shoulder for 25 years. Of course they had felt regret, hatred, and even contemplated death, but the show was now a piece of history, and a lot of the cast and the actors that were on the show said they had a good time filming and making it. They had turned a failure into a success. They had made something that people had considered was a failure, and they had turned that into something that they had grown from. Everyone that worked on the show had hit the lowest of lows, but now there was only one way for them to go, and that was up. And by up, I mean the Disney movie! There were so many lessons that had been learned. Even two of the writers had even met and became married and now have kids because of the show. But the co-creator of Melody Rules, Geoff Houtman, had kept this monkey on his back for 25 painfully long years, that after finally ripping off that band-aid and talking to these people he hadn't talked to in such a long time, he discovered that Melody Rules wasn't a failure. They changed his perspective and made him understand that the show wasn't all his fault, and perhaps it never really was.
I'd like to thank everyone. Every single one of the nearly 30 writers, actors, directors, producers, crew and commentators that I talked to. Guys, thanks for going back there with me. I know it wasn't easy. And thanks for helping me understand that it isn't actually all my fault, and that perhaps it never really was.